Okay, good day. This is the Honors Algebra 2 Blended Learning presentation for January 13th, 2023. Our learning goals are graphing complex numbers in a complex plane and finding the absolute value of complex numbers. I want to keep this short, so let's get right to it. You have been plotting points on a Cartesian plane, which we normally call the XY plane. Today we're going to talk about plotting points or plotting complex numbers on a complex plane. Now, a complex plane is similar to the Cartesian plane as it is two number lines that are listed perpendicular to each other along what we would normally call the x-axis. That is going to be our real part, and then along what we would normally call the y-axis, that's going to be our imaginary part. And so it's very simple. We're going to take that most of the time. You write your complex numbers as a plus bi. We're going to convert that value to our x coordinate, and we're going to convert that value to our y coordinate, and we're going to plot the points as you're normally used to. So let's do a couple quick examples. And the first thing we want to do is make sure that we have labeled the graph correctly so that we know that it is a complex plane. So this is going to be our A axis, and this is going to be our BI axis. And so when I look at this thing, 2 plus 3i, I'll just come over here and we'll mark this as 2. We'll come up here and mark this as 3. And so this point right here will be 2 plus 3i. Similarly, if I want to go negative 4 minus 6i, I'll come back here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This point right here we'll call negative 4. And we'll go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll call this negative 6. And this point right here will be negative 4 minus 6i. Finally, our last point is just a pure imaginary number at negative 5i. And so if we have just a pure imaginary number, it will be graphed along our BI axis. And in this case, this point right here is negative 5i. All right, the second thing that I'm asking you to do today is talk about finding the absolute value of a complex number. Now, if you recall, we talked earlier that the absolute value of real number, a real good definition for that, of a real number is the distance from a number to 0 on the real number line. And so that's why we get a positive result no matter what our absolute value is. So for instance, if I draw a quick number line right here and we go, all right, this is 0, 1, 2, 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3 because this distance from 0 to 3 is 3. And the absolute value of negative 3, 1, 2, negative 3, that distance is also 3. So the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Now, we are going to have a similar definition. The absolute value of a complex number is the distance from the origin to the complex number in the complex plane. So we've already talked about graphing these points. So if we look at this first one right here, the distance from the origin, that original place, to this value is the direct line right there. And since this distance right here is 3 and this distance right there is 2, we can use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what this absolute value is. So the formula for calculating absolute value of a complex number a plus bi, the absolute value of a plus bi is just the square root of a squared plus b squared. Now, this is just a simplified version of the distance formula or Pythagorean theorem, however you want to look at it. Please take note, this is where most people make their mistakes. There is no I in this formula. This is not an imaginary value. It is a positive distance. And so we say that the absolute value is just the distance. Do not put I into this formula. So let's do a couple of quick examples. To find the absolute value of 2 plus 3i, we're going to say that the absolute value of 2 plus 3i is just the square root of 2 squared plus 3 squared. Let's do it again. The square root of 2 squared plus 3 squared. And again, notice no I in this equation here. That's where everybody makes their mistakes. And so 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 and 3 is 13. Since 13 is a prime number, I cannot reduce that particular expression. So there is our answer. Similarly, if I do this and if I take negative 4 minus 6i and I make the absolute value of that negative 4 plus 6i, the absolute value of negative 4, and I know I screwed up. I know you're probably all looking at me and saying, hey, what's going on? I'm not changing my signs there. I have it correct now. It's going to be the square root of negative 4 squared plus negative 6 squared. So let's do that. So I got 4 squared is going to be 16. Negative 4 squared will be 16. And negative 6 squared will be 36. So 16 and 36, that'll be square root of 52. Now I know I can take a 4 out of that. And if I take a 4 out of that, it'll go, let's see here, 4 goes into 5 one time with 1 left over. And so I have a 12. And then 4 goes into 12. So 13. Now 13 is a prime number, as we just saw. So I feel pretty confident that we're done. And so the absolute value of 4, or negative 4 minus 6i is going to be 2 square root 13. Put a box around that and I'm done. Now, the absolute value of negative 5i. Well, since this doesn't have a real part and an imaginary part, and it's just a pure real number, we know that it's going to be on our BI axis. It's just this distance right there. I don't need to do all that work, even though it would work. You could still put in a 0 for the A part, and then you would put negative 5 for the B part, and it would still work. But we know just by looking at what we graphed, and we're going to take the shortcut, we're going to say that that distance is 5 units and put a box around that. All right there, folks. I know that was quick, but I know you wanted to get through it. And if you need to review, you can always press pause or run the slider back and forth to where you need to get. But to finish it off, let's do something a little bit interesting. The McCully fun fact of the day: Mr. McCully's favorite sports team is the Detroit Red Wings. His favorite player of all time is Sergei Fedorov, a Russian-born forward who defected to the United States to become a citizen and play for the Detroit Red Wings. He won 3 Stanley Cups with the Wings. All right, that's all I have for today, folks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Get that worksheet done and have it ready to turn in on Tuesday. Goodbye.